Welcome everyone to the Successful Startup Summit. I'm Kim Thompson, and I am so thrilled that you are here because I'm really excited to be bringing you so many inspirational women who just took a leap of faith. They pushed through their fears and they stepped into a life of possibilities. And I wanted to pull this together, this summit together, because it's really the information I wish I had had when I first started my business. I started a business back in, well, actually 2011. It's been 10 years. It's going on 10 years this year. And I did it because I absolutely wanted to be at home with my children. I have 4 kids and I'm a single mom. And I saw entrepreneurship as a way for me to actually have the flexibility and the freedom and the finances to be not only provide for my children, but to be present for my children. And I had to do it out of necessity. I had to be able to put food on the table and take care of them. And entrepreneurship was the thing that actually got me there. So that's why I wanted to pull this whole summit together. We're going to be hearing from so many different women today in a variety of different industries that have literally stepped into a bigger vision of themselves. And so with that, regardless of where you're at in your life and in your business, whether you are here because, maybe you have an idea for a business and you're just starting out, or maybe you are like struggling to get to the next level, the information that you're going to hear today and from what these women are going to be sharing, I know will be incredibly beneficial to you. So let's get started. My first speaker, I am so excited to bring her on because, wow, she's done so much in such a short time. She is a 4-time Olympic athlete. She is a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. She is a national rugby champion. She is a humanitarian, a motivational speaker and author, a personal development coach, and she's still an occupational therapist as well. Plenty of things that she has done. So I'm grateful that she's here today. But before we bring her out, I want to give you a little glimpse into her life. So I'm going to ask Carrie. Carrie Lynn is our tech today. She's running everything behind the scenes. So you may hear me occasionally throw to Carrie and ask her to, if she's monitoring the chat and such. Right now, Carrie's going to start a video and we're going to give you a little glimpse into our first speaker's life.
For those of you who choose to embrace challenges, you will see opportunities instead of obstacles. Step outside of your comfort zone, take a risk. We are all capable of way more than we give ourselves credit for. Because although a goal may seem too big and the outcome may seem highly unlikely, please just believe me when I say it is still without a doubt very much possible.
That absolutely gives me chills. Help me in welcoming Heather Moyse. Heather, come on out here.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yep, absolutely. We can see you,
Excellent.
we can hear you. That video just it's so inspiring, and it gives me chills because I think a lot of times that it's something about just the possibilities and going for your dreams play out so well when you're an athlete because you can see it, it more so than you can see in someone's personal life or in their business life. And so when you watch an athlete, it's like, oh my gosh, you're cheering them on going, she can do it, they can do it, gosh. And it's almost like the possibilities become real for everyone else. So I love that we started with that.
I've found that quite a bit, especially, well, one with my speaking career, but my speaking career also evolved into, coaching and doing a lot of the things that I'm doing now, working with people and a lot of women, to be frank. So it's been a really great journey for me. And my training as an occupational therapist, even though I'm not technically working as an occupational therapist right now, that training, academically being trained to help people achieve their goals, I applied that to my own pursuits. And then now all of that stuff is what my experience is kind of overlaid with that academic training. It's been really great to be able to help people in different ways.
But you had that training, right? And you were following that path.
Mhm.
And then you made a pivot somewhere along the way because you did. I know that you say that you were doing 100% of what was expected of you, but not really 100% of what was possible, right?
Of what I was capable of. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's one of my quotes. It's interesting, and it's some of the you know, as a coach, the best way to help people through things is to ask the right questions. And sometimes the question is, are you doing 100% of what is expected of you? And people would be like, well, yeah. Or are you doing 100% of what you're truly capable of, which is usually way more than what those expectations are. And I think that we underestimate ourselves, and have limited ourselves, kind of subconsciously, by believing that we're setting these big goals, but we're still limiting them within the boundaries of what we grew up with, what we, our immediate environments and our immediate exposures to things. I know it's been really, especially for me, because I didn't start. And yes, you told everyone that I went to 4 Olympic games, competed in 4 games and 2 Olympic medals, and World Rugby Hall of Famer. But all of that stuff didn't start until I didn't start lifting weights for sports until I was 27. So things are just, things like that kind of flip people's thinking upside down, and they're like, wait a second, what do you mean? And why didn't you? And I mean, you were athletically gifted growing up. Like, why didn't you do that? Well, I grew up in a really small town, and so my thinking was not consciously, oh, I can't do that. It just didn't occur to me as being an option. And
Right.
so I think we need to learn to kind of expand those for ourselves, but also for our kids and for, the people around us, and kind of remind them that possibilities lie beyond those boundaries that we've set for ourselves.
I think I think that's so important because it really is that we get in these comfort zones and we
Mhm.
stay in what's the familiar. And yeah, exactly what's expected of us. I think it's starting to change obviously with COVID. I think everybody being at home and working from home, it's starting to open up this awareness, a little bit more of an awareness like, oh my gosh, there's so many other opportunities and possibilities that are out there. Whereas before, it's kind of like, here's kind of the traditional path that we follow, and then we fall into this. And so many of us, I think, at some moment we wake up and we go, really? Is this all there is? Like, there's so much more. That's why I think for me, it's like I love watching movies that are, athletic movies, because again, I think it plays out. You kind of look and you go, wow, it's like if they can do it, if they can stretch into that version of themselves and into those possibilities, like what are those possibilities? And really, in a sense, it's unlimited.
It is. It absolutely is. And I think that we have limited ourselves based on our own assumptions. I mean, the things that really hold us back are, well, the excuses we've created for ourselves, but usually those are rooted in three things. And those are rooted in our assumptions,
Mhm.
which we make way too many assumptions. Something as very simple as, oh, I'm not qualified enough, or
Right.
to apply for that job, or um,
Or I need a
I
certificate.
or
I need to go get
they're,
licensing.
they're too busy. They're too busy. They're not going to want to do this with me, or they're not going to want to, like, we assume so way too many things. Another one would be self-limiting beliefs. And those are the stories that have been kind of ingrained in us, or something that happened when we were kids that we carry with us. And those stories have become real to us. And so again, it's like the stories we're telling ourselves have become these self-limiting beliefs. Like, okay, you might not have been able to do that when you were 13 or 14, but there are two different things. One, you're not 13 or 14 anymore, but whatever someone told you when you were 13 or 14 has stayed with you. And I think we also need to remind ourselves that there's not only one way to accomplish something. So to get to a final point, there's not one path to any final goal. And the third thing is fear. And we are so afraid. We say that we're afraid of failure, and a lot of people think that that's what's holding us back. But it's really, we're afraid of standing out. We're afraid of the unknown, really. And part of that unknown is the fear of failure. But we don't actually fear failure. If we celebrated failure, it wouldn't be a thing.
Mhm.
What we fear is, again, what we assume failure will bring: judgment, isolation, ridicule. That is what we actually fear. And so once you start recognizing these different patterns and the things that are holding us back, it's only then that we can actually kind of break through those and set some different kinds of goals and embrace those not as final endpoints, but more as challenges, just to see how close you can get.
Well, it's so true that it's not the fear itself. It's never really the fear itself because we have no idea. And it is all those little things like those scripts that may have started somewhere in childhood, or somebody might have said something, made an innocent comment. And
Mhm.
yet somehow or another, we kind of take that on, and then we hold that as to being true. And you're right though, absolutely spot on. You have to be aware of it. If you're not aware of it, you can't change those beliefs.
Yeah.
You have to kind of look at it. I remember years ago, talking to different therapists and neuropsychologists and such, and saying, well, there's different layers of the onion. You have to keep peeling the onion back. And I'm thinking, you know how thick an onion is? Like that's gonna take flipping forever. I'm not signing up for that, right? But really, you don't have to get stuck in that. Like what I found is like, okay, look, you take a look at it and you say, wow, where is that coming from? And for me, a lot of it's journaling it and going, where's that coming from and why is that? And when you remember it and you can look at it, you can kind of go, oh, is it serving me
Yeah.
or is it not serving me? Like I
Yeah.
never thought,
I was at an event about 5 years ago, and well, maybe 5 or 6. And that is when I found out that and obviously it didn't hold me back in terms of my sporting pursuits when I finally decided to go into there. But leading up to that, like, why didn't I pursue something like that? And why am even now as a, professional speaker and coach, and, I've opened for John Maxwell, and I've done all these things, and still, you have those questions, and oh my gosh, I can't believe they're going to pay that much to have me speak. Like all of these things in my brain. And I'm like, where does that come from? And there was an exercise at this conference I was at. It was a professional speakers conference for growing your business and learning, more about the industry.
right.
And it was a woman was going through these things, like the things that are holding you back from up leveling, like from leveling up and getting to the next level. And she had this, you talk about journaling and what are the things that stand out. Well, she was talking about different phases of your life and thinking of the moments or comments that you remember from those moments. And they could either be ones that are empowering comments, or they could be just like what stands out. And I was like, it surprised me that this one comment stood out from well, two, but this one that was kind of very the limiting comment.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it was a girl I used to hang out with. And I mean, we were getting ready for the bell to ring to go to recess. We're all standing there. And, all she said was, look at that girl over there. She thinks she's so much better than everyone else. And she was referring not to me, but to a girl who was over in the corner, just showing a dance move to her friend. She was a Highland dancer and she was showing this new move to her friend, like minding her own business. And that comment was not directed to me, but I internalized it. I internalized that comment and I said, oh my gosh, like unknowingly, like very subconsciously, I kind of internalized this idea that I never want anyone to think that I think I'm better than they are. Because I don't. No matter what I accomplish or what I've achieved in my life, I am not a better human than other humans.
Right.
And so to me, that internalized, which meant all of a sudden I was downplaying my athletic ability. I wanted to make sure that even if I was going to be better on the field than someone else, that I didn't look like I was that I was trying to show up people, that I was, doing all these things. And it was sabotaging. And without even understanding or realizing where that came from, it was sabotaging. So, I didn't want to lift weights. God, one, I was already very muscular growing up. So, there was that, growing up in a time when muscles and being fit was not, the attractive image of a woman. But also, I didn't want people to think that I was trying to be better than anyone else. And that was a very limiting, sabotaging, like self-sabotaging thought that I've internalized. And I'm right now, just the acknowledgement of what that is and knowing what that is, it helps. Now it's there, it lingers, and sometimes it tries to push its way through. We all have those that kind of try and wiggle their way back.
They're going to pop up. Things like that will always pop up.
Exactly. But I mean, at least acknowledging and knowing that and being able to recognize that is the first step really in figuring out how to get past it.
I think you bring up a great point about what so many of us deal with. And I think I see this more so in females than in males. And that is that self-sabotage. And it's that we take something on and we start to own it and we take it so personally. And a big part of that too is we don't want to outshine somebody else. And I don't know, I see that across the board with so many different women. And I'm not sure if it's a competitive thing or whatever, but it's like, we don't want to really show that, okay, well, we excel in this area, that area, whatever it may be. And the reality is, yeah, it doesn't matter. But we're so used to not wanting to kind of like put ourselves out there, and whether that's something that was ingrained in us as in childhood, or if it's a societal thing. I think it's we're all starting to become more and more aware of this, thankfully. But it really is true. It's like, why is it that we take something, and what that girl said might not have meant anything to anybody else standing around you,
No,
but there was something in you that it triggered, right?
it did.
And you're like, okay, now what? But it's okay. Look how it shows up later in your life,
Exactly.
way down the road.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's an important thing. Part of that too is realizing that our words are so powerful. We don't realize how powerful our words are.
Mhm.
And sometimes you think that what you're saying to someone is falling on, deaf ears. They're not taking in what you're saying. But if you are saying something, it might be someone walking, like, yes, it may actually never affect that one person, but someone walking by might hear what you have just said to that one person, and that might then have changed the trajectory of their life, or the way that they're thinking of something, or
Right.
you just don't know, which is why we have to be like, really own the words we use, the choices we make, even the choices we make in terms of pursuing our own goals. You may not even give direction to anybody else, but by someone witnessing how you are owning your pursuit of something you truly believe in and are passionate about, that then is seen by other people. And it almost gives that permission to those people to then pursue the things that are important to them, and
Right.
be like, what, wow, okay, she's going for it. Why can't I go for it? Why can't I do that thing I've always wanted to do? And I think that how we choose to live our life can be very empowering to other people.
100%. I mean, because that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this whole summit, because I know as sure as I'm sitting here, and because I've demonstrated this in many areas of my life, is that if you really have a desire, first of all, you aren't given a desire if you don't have the ability to bring that desire to fruition.
Mhm.
But the journey to get to doing that is where we uncover so many of these other things that we have set up for ourselves that hold us back. And so it's like, okay, well, how quickly can I move through that? And really it comes down to how willing are you to do some of the work that it takes to look at that and to recognize it, and then say, do I need this? Because you're right, things are going to come up for us. And so it's a matter of how quickly can we look at that and go, oh, I'm gonna catch it, look at it, and go, are you serving me or not? Let me get rid of it. And then you have to fill that void, right, with something more positive, something that does help you. But it's the words are so incredibly powerful. I remember that, there used to be that saying, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And I'm thinking, that is so not true. I mean, words have
Not
so much
anymore.
power.
Yes. Words do have so much power. It's really interesting because when I'm working with clients, it kind of comes in phases. Like I think the strength of my ability to either coach or speak on a stage or whatever is my ability to help shift someone's perspective to see the possibilities that still exist within whatever circumstance they're dealing with or what they're facing. And whether that was when I was, in occupational therapy and doing whatever, it was the same, working with a client and being able to, no matter whether it was post-stroke, whatever they were dealing with, to help them see the possibilities that still exist. So, I mean, that's an extreme example, obviously, but
Right.
it's the same thing with anything. Like,
It still blends together.
we see these seemingly insurmountable goals, and so we don't even bother, or we think it's not worth it because they seem so insurmountable.
Mhm.
But at least when you're working with someone, or when you take the time even by yourself to break that down and figure out what the daily steps are, what the tasks are, what the whatever are, it really starts to seem more possible. Like the more even just minuscule steps you take towards getting somewhere, the more it seems so possible. And I really love that part of it, is breaking things down and helping people see that.
Mhm.
Now, the other part of it is just shifting your perspective completely in terms of the goals that you are setting for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, at the very beginning, we were talking about those like the setting goals and making your choices kind of within the boundaries of your comfort zone or the boundaries of your immediate environment and exposures. Well, since I didn't start, lifting weights and going to the Olympics when I was 27, like all of a sudden it kind of made me think about things in a different way. I all of a sudden, a few years ago, my nephew, and I actually wrote about this in my book because the anecdote is so perfect for people to be like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. So my nephew, who was about 5 at the time, like, or almost 5, he got an infection, and so he had to get, like, surgically get some skin removed. So he went to the hospital and got it moved, and super brave little kid, like, just, he's incredible. And also very athletic, like crazy athleticism. But a few days after he got back from surgery, he seemed very pensive. And so my sister asked, is everything okay? And he just said, I just wanted to know, because of the surgery, does this mean I'll be competing? Does this mean I'll be competing for the Olympics that Auntie competed in, or in the other Olympics? And my sister's like, what other Olympics? And he said, the one where if you're missing part of your body. And my sister was like, the Paralympics? And he said, yeah. And she kind of explained it. Now, there was no judgment as to which Olympics. He just needed to make sense of things and wanted to know which ones he would be competing. Yeah. Now, I say this story because not anywhere in his thinking was the idea that competing in an Olympic Games, whichever one that was not a very real possibility for him. Mm-hmm. And that is because I am in his immediate environment. That's the only reason, is because he's been exposed to that as being a reality. And I started thinking, okay, how many doctors become doctors because someone in their family was a doctor, like in their immediate family was a doctor? How many people go to university or don't go to university because nobody has ever done it before in their immediate family? How many, you could just, it's endless scenarios. Yeah. We kind of base our goals and what we think of being as realistic in terms of what we have actually seen being done by people in our own environments. And so, I just think that we need to, like, actively and very intentionally look beyond that, like look at beyond those options and beyond those immediate kind of exposures to see, find things that we're passionate about that we would never have thought about before. Mm-hmm. Find goals that are, may have been seemingly insurmountable within those boundaries, but when you actually break them down, they're actually not so insurmountable, like becoming an entrepreneur, like becoming self-employed and starting your own business, like doing all of those things. And once you start breaking it down, it's really not, everything has challenges, everything does. Yeah, absolutely. But it's not so insurmountable.
Well, it's really breaking it down into digestible chunks so you can say, oh, maybe I can, if I can take a baby step here, it's starting with small steps and maybe looking at the overall, picture or vision. But I think what so many of us tend to do, and I say us because I used to do this. I grew up on personal development books. I owned a franchise in the personal development industry. And yet, with as much as I knew and as many mentors, there were times that I was like, why am I holding back? Why am I stuck in areas? And part of that is because I had to find the right mentors that resonated with me, that I could believe in, that I could see myself in kind of their position. And there were some things that I would hold on to and say, oh, but nobody's done that in my family. Or if I go to do that, because I started doing speaking I had a tremendous success in sales at a young age and started going out and training others and doing speaking. And there was a couple of things like some things that were said, and I was like, oh, hold back. Uh-oh, don't do this, And then I hid for a long time. And it was like, okay, what's going to get you to step outside that box and really create because that's what you're doing. You're creating your own reality, or a different reality than what's been in probably your environment. And, for you're talking about going into the Olympics and competing and starting to train at 27, where most athletes have been doing it for years. So walk us through that journey, because I would think, honestly, if I was sitting at the Olympic camp and hearing you come as some hot shot, and I'm thinking, I've been busting my butt for, 5 years now, and she's only been here for a short time. I think there's two thoughts. One, I'd be like, damn, I am on her team because we're winning gold. And then the other not so great thought is probably like, what the heck? Like, yeah. Don't take my spot, right? So walk us, I want to know how that journey came, how that evolved for you.
Yes. So I basically was like at university, undergrad, obviously my late teens, early 20s, I did uh, soccer for my first 2 years, rugby for my last 2 years, and then I was a sprinter kind of for track and field for all 4 years in the winter. But still I never lifted weights. Like I could get away with it because I was genetically muscular anyway. And so coaches just assumed I was lifting weights on my own. So, and that was very much a self-image thing. And like just that vulnerability, all of those, things that we have. And that stuck with me from comments that were said when I was a kid. So, so there was that. And I just left it. For me, I grew up in a small place, a very academic family. So even though I did play sports for fun growing up and even at university, I had always considered sport to be extracurricular to what I was going to do to earn a living. So it wasn't like I was going to lift weights and start making sports a job. To me, it was just a fun release, like something that I just loved doing and happened to be really good at it. Then after my undergrad, I lived in Ireland for a bit. And then I was accepted to do an internship down in Trinidad and Tobago as a disability sports program officer. And right before I left, one of the track coaches from McGill, a different university, he called me out of the blue and said he's been asked to do recruiting for Eastern Canada. And I said, for what? And he said, for bobsledding. And I was like, oh my God. In my head, I was like, who does bobsledding, first of all? And so I said, no, I wasn't interested. And he kind of went on this thing like, Heather, like I know who's in the program. So this would have been before the Salt Lake City games, right before that, like half a year before that. And I said, he goes, I know who's in the program. You'd be going to the Olympics for sure. Like, definitely. And I said, no, I'm not interested. But you could tell by his like anxiety in the whole conversation that had always been his dream. My dream
was important to him. Yeah, not your goal.
Exactly. So at the time, I had always wanted to work in a developing country, and that's what I was doing. So I was pursuing my dream, my goal, basing it on my values.
Yeah.
And so I went to Trinidad. I lived there for about 3 years, lived and worked down there for about 3 years, moved back to Canada to do my master's degree in occupational therapy. Now, 1 year into that 2-year program, I happened to run into the same guy, the same recruiter again. And he was like, oh my gosh, I know you're so much older now and it would be a lot harder. And
I'm like, that's a zing.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, you're challenging a redhead saying she's too old to do something. Okay, let's see where this goes. So I basically, still though, I was in the middle of my master's degree. And again, like expectations, not anyone else's on me, but my own, like assumptions is just, I was taking an academic path, pursuing something I really enjoyed. So, I mean, I'm not going to go off and do these things because in my brain, Olympians were TV people. Olympians weren't everyday normal people like I considered myself to be. They were those people.
Yeah.
And I was doing real people things, normal people things.
Yeah.
So
you were doing what was expected of you.
Yeah, or what I expected, like what I limited my.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So I just said, not like I'm in the middle of this. It's not like I'm going to do this. He goes, just do the testing camp. And I was like, oh my gosh, just to get this guy off my back. I said, okay, I'll do the testing camp. It's not like I'm really going to do this. I showed up for the testing camp. I missed the first day of testing because of a rugby tournament, which they agreed to. They flew me up to Calgary to do this camp. Thank goodness I missed that first day because the first day was all weightlifting and I had never lifted weights. The second day was all speed work and plyos and power and sprinting through timing lights, pulling weighted sleds and stuff. Anyway, I still had never done any of that testing, but at least it was in my wheelhouse. And I ended up breaking one of their testing records. And I was like, wait a second. You mean to tell me that I have broken a record amongst these people who have been training for years?
Yeah.
Supposed to be representing us at the next Olympics. So it became a challenge. Can I learn a new sport? Can I learn to do it well? And can I learn to do it well to compete in the next Olympics, which just happened to be 5 months later. So I would not have accepted the challenge if they had said, oh, you have to train for 8 years and you could go to the Olympics, or like that wasn't it. But because it became this immediate, I'm only putting my life on hold for basically a half a year. To me, that was digestible. That was something that I'm like, okay, what's half a year? Or if I have to put just apply for a 1 year leave of absence for my master's degree, worst case scenario, I have a really funny story, good story to tell people. I can still go back to do my master's degree. Like I can apply for that 1 year. So for me, it was a digestible piece, a digestible step that I could take. And that's what I did. So I applied for a 1-year leave of absence. I ended up, going to those Olympic Games 5 months later, and we came fourth. After that fourth place, I went back, finished my master's degree, thought I was back in real life doing, back to normal people things.
Right.
But that fourth place was very haunting. And the next Olympics were going to be on home soil in Vancouver. And I was like, we missed standing on that Olympic podium by only 500ths of a second. If I train for 3 years, can I actually win a medal for my country?
Yeah.
So it became a different challenge. It was honestly, with that first commitment to doing that bobsledding on the way to Torino, I didn't fall in love with bobsledding. I hadn't even been down a track yet. I hadn't seen a sled, hadn't been down the track, and I had to make this commitment, this decision. And so for me, I fell in love with the challenge. I realized that going through academics and stuff, to me, it wasn't that full blown, like, it wasn't challenging. Like, I was going through motions and I knew how to, academically get what I needed, like going through all that stuff. But when I had the Olympic Games in 5 months later, that's when I realized I'm fueled and motivated by challenges. And each of the 4 Olympic Games I did present each time was a different decision. Like, I even said no, no, no for the last ones in Pyeongchang. And then the script got flipped. And it basically it became more about leadership and impact, because they reached out and said they were, they just had a lack of leadership in the program. And I was like, this is 6 months before the games in Pyeongchang. And I'm like, I haven't trained for 3.5 years in Sochi. I have had a second hip surgery that I, recovered like a normal person, not like an athlete. So I have no idea if, one, my body will even allow me to do it. 2, if I want to put my business on hold to go back into that, online, being on tour again for the next year. But the whole concept of going back with them, helping them with the mindset piece, the leadership piece, the managing the ins and outs of a stressful Olympic season piece, like the everything else piece.
Right.
And the push was secondary, like actually the physical push of pushing a bobsled was secondary. To me, that was a different kind of challenge. And to me, I'm like, so I went back. Like, it was crazy. I went back under the promise from the federation, from the sporting federation, that I was only going to go back to push a rookie, someone who had never competed in the games. So even though my former teammate and I had won gold in Vancouver and in Sochi, I went back saying the only reason I will come back and help the team is if you support me in only pushing someone who's never competed before. Because I didn't need to go back with my former teammate and just try and win another Olympic medal again. Like, to me, it wasn't, it's never been about that. It's been about the challenge and the challenge and the challenge. And to me, it was a much more appealing challenge and which aligned with my values and my business.
Right.
To empower someone by helping them shift their mindset, by shifting the way they're thinking about situations, stressful, how to problem solve, how to, do all that stuff in order for them to execute what they're actually physically able to execute. And I loved it. And it was really kind of a great challenge for me to be able to go back. Physical challenge, absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's how it happened. And it was challenging with some other teammates. Maybe not.
What's your teammate, your former teammate thing?
It was hard.
I want to repeat.
It was really tough. We kind of, she kind of branched herself off, so was a little more independent in those games anyway. She found another teammate and kind of went forward with that. And so it was kind of like a branch off of Team Canada. And so I was just committed to helping, Team Canada with, that sort of stuff. So she did her thing and went on to achieve success. And I mean, not everybody is going to understand. Like, there was a lot of admiration for what I was able to do and stand up to the federation and say, this is what I'm going to do. But there was also a lot of pushback, even from, some fans and some people outside and in the media, and questioning, how I could knowingly forfeit the best opportunity to win a medal, another medal. And it's because it clashed and didn't align with their definitions of success. And so,
that's okay, but it's so powerful because you're staying true to your values and you're giving back. You had done what was a challenge to you. You rose to that challenge, and now you're in a position where you're able to give back. And
Exactly.
but you have to kind of put blinders on and turn away from what other people, everybody out there is thinking, because people are so willing to jump in and give you their opinions,
Mhm.
whether or not you asked for them,
Exactly.
in all areas of life. And it's kind of like, I don't remember asking you for that, but but you have to put those blinders on. So, I mean, kudos to you for actually doing that and staying true to your values, because that speaks volumes. And I mean, I'm sure that rookie was like, had just blown away and learned so much from you. But you need to think about what you're doing by paying it forward and just showing up and showing really how you step into leadership.
Yeah. And I mean, that's
Powerful.
carried over with even working with clients, for some part of it is when someone comes in with a goal in mind, the first thing is breaking down why.
Yeah.
Like, why is that your goal? And like, really why? Not
Mhm.
just the surface why, but like in my book, I talk about the root why, where you actually ask that question at least 5 times. And you will get down to usually a feeling like of security, of safety, of validation, and it comes down, it's really, you get really honest with yourself and you figure out your real reason. And sometimes when you really figure out what you're striving for, it might not be that one particular goal that gets you that feeling. There might be different options for you to
Right.
achieve that same thing. And part of that is like just acknowledging that. And when you know that, that is what the deeper you get and closer you get to that why, the more you can, the further away your breaking point is, the further away, like the more you can be like, okay, well, if it was just for a paycheck, then I'm not dealing with your goal. Like, I'm
Right.
not going to put up with that because the paycheck's not worth it. But was it the paycheck you were after, or was it the fact that the paycheck allows you to save to allow your kids to go to university? Why is that important to
Right.
you? That they have the freedom of making their choices. Well, why is that important to you? Because you never did. So this is like allowing you to kind of give them something that you feel. So when that is there, maybe you can, withstand the bull a little bit longer
Yeah.
or a little bit more because you're owning it and you are in control of it because you're choosing this over this. So it really helps you in getting past a lot of those roadblocks, setbacks, whatever, when you can identify your real reason for doing it. And it's pretty empowering.
Yeah. And it's such a, that's so powerful, because it's a process. It's a process of really going in, because there's always a reason. There's always another reason. There's always something underlying, and it's going, okay, what is my driving motivator? So I absolutely love that. We're getting close to the end of our time together, and it's unfortunate because I have so many other questions and
I'm
things.
like, we are.
I know. So, I mean, we'll have to do this again, because there's so much on so many different levels that I'd love to unpack here. And especially like, look, to go into the Olympics in 5 months, I get the athletic ability. I truly get that. But you know what? That's a mindset shift. It really is. And so I love that you talked about the challenge. Like for you, you knew what was the thing that made sense to you. Like to do 8 years, probably not going to do it. But to know
But
that it was right there and everything aligned.
Tim, it was like I still almost didn't do it. And I told this once. I was on a TV show and it was a talk show. And when they asked me this question, I got messages after from someone saying that they literally went for something that they had kind of discounted because of this story. Now, this I almost didn't because I told you earlier about the whole being muscular and being, I never wore spandex really before. And the fact that I would have to be in a speed suit,
Yeah.
people, I usually throw this out as a joke when I'm speaking, but it was almost a deal breaker for me to be in public in a speed suit, and not even just in public, like on international TV in front of millions of
I'm
people.
not putting that helmet on and that outfit. Yeah.
That, like head to toe, we're talking head to toe
Yeah.
out there for the world to see, and also having to lift weights because in that environment you have no, like, that's where you are. Like there are those things that almost prevented me from doing that. And to think that just being seen in a speed suit, my own self-consciousness, my own self-image issues could have prevented me from winning 2 Olympic gold medals. Like the things that we block ourselves from doing, or, I even called my sister and I said, but I would have to lift weights if I do this. And she's like, well, then lift weights.
She's like, hello.
She's
It's
like, what are you?
gold.
Yeah.
It's the
She said,
Olympics.
if you don't lift weights, if you like insist on not lifting weights and you just miss out on making the team,
Yeah.
are you going to regret that? Yes. So it kind of
Ah,
developed into this whole no regrets philosophy for me. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to be happy at the end? Like at the end, if there are two scenarios, I achieve it or I don't. If I don't, what am I going to regret and how could I have changed it? And that's how I will make my decisions moving forward.
yeah.
And it's it's kind of like, what outcome can you live with? And if it's only the one for success, you may need to reevaluate.
Right.
If you're okay with, if you don't achieve it and you're still okay with all the decisions you made along the way, then you made all the right decisions along the way. If you wouldn't have changed
Right.
anything. So like I can't control if someone just happens to be a way better athlete than I am or what, like I don't have control over that.
Yeah.
I do have control over all the decisions that put me in the best position to be the best that I can be at that moment.
Yeah,
And
you have
so
control of this right here and right
yeah,
in here, and not what everybody else is thinking or saying or doing. And it's really, it takes getting into alignment with that and with your core values. I love this. I think it's so important. I know you do, you're a motivational speaker. I know you speak all over for many different corporations and such. And I also know, you do personal development coaching and really goal setting coaching. So how can somebody get a hold of you if they want to get in contact with you at your website?
yeah. Probably my website if they want to kind of, I mean, they can also reach out on social media, on Instagram.
Yeah.
Sometimes if I do a post, I kind of get huge influxes of messages, which means sometimes I won't see them or won't get to them. So if I don't, I really do honestly try to respond as much as I can.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't work, then just through my website, it's heathermoyse.com. And there's a contact page there and you can reach out there. If you forget what it is, heathermoyse.com, you can always just type Heather bobsledder and I would probably pop up somewhere.
Listen, I know you are because I looked it up first and I'm like, oh, she has a park named after her.
I do have a park. Yeah, a park.
I was like, wow.
And
Okay, also, I know we're going to be we have your book, Redefining Possibilities, that we are gifting to somebody here. Actually, I'm going to do a couple of those
yeah,
gifts.
it's right here.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yay. So
yeah.
good.
I'm excited.
We're going to do a couple of those books as a giveaway. What I think I'm going to do, because we have a lot of people on here, I'm going to do a trivia question at the break, and then we're going to do a drawing towards the end, and then we'll announce who's winning the book.
Perfect.
Before you go, one quick question. I just
Yeah.
want to know, if you had one word to describe yourself, what would that be?
One word to describe myself, like to other.
Yeah.
Maybe empowering, but I think it's too cliche right now. I would like to think out of the box and think sunshine.
Oh, I love
And I
that.
use the word sunshine partly because that is the only nickname. My parents do not have nicknames for my brother or my sister, but they still call me sunshine to this day. But also because sunshine isn't just like, whatever, it sheds light on things. And I think my biggest strength in helping other people achieve what they're truly capable of achieving is helping them see that. And by shedding light on the possibilities that still exist for them and helping them see things differently. And I think sunshine does that.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. And we'll have to do this again, because again, there are so many different things that I'd love to get into and talk further about, because I mean, everything you're saying about the goal setting and stepping into it and shutting out all those other voices, it's truly empowering. So I truly thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you.